What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Football Friday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. And as we welcome back our good friend, the prop, Professor Shine. Remember, too, from our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports. And I got to tell you right now, they'll pay you on the spot. Only place paying right on the spot for golf, paying for composite baseball bats, gloves, high-tier golf drivers, putters, and sets, adult hockey. Yeah, the Flyers got to win. Good for them. Right now, you mentioned it on the show, BYP with Q. You get an extra 10% added to buy or take 10% off your next entire order. And I'm sure there's probably going to be some Eagles gear, some Phillies gear, and who knows, maybe a little Prime as well. We'll get into a little college, but Prop, always good to talk to you. And I'm wondering, last night you're sitting there, you got a horrible Thursday night game. You're thinking about me because I told you Russell Wilson is cooked. He's going to get benched. You got some shekels and coins on that game. And then you're probably sitting there watching your Philadelphia Phillies, and I'm wondering, which way did you go? Did you lay it with the Braves and you were trying to root for the Phillies, or how were you torn last night?
Well, it should be torn for everybody that's a baseball bettor and a fan, unfortunately. This is why probably the best bettors are able to, separate their bias. A lot of really good bettors aren't even fans, or they say they're not fans. I don't believe them. I don't believe 90% of those guys, but I don't root for anybody. What's good is you don't want to get it clouded. I pride myself in not being clouded. It bit me in the ass because I got a really good number on the Braves for the series. So I took the Braves and rooted for the Phillies, which is idiotic, but it worked out. Because if you saw the number on Strider, I actually got a decent number on the Phillies. Strider opened up some
lose
places.
When he pitches.
He opened up some places 147, 144, right around that number on the road. It settled right about 135 on the pitching line. So you're getting Phillies as a dog, and they hit Strider. There's pros and cons for it. I thought it was if you could get 130 or higher, it was a good Phillies number. So it's funny because you're playing the Phillies, and then you had Atlanta for the series. It's always kind of a little bit of a quandary. It wasn't life breaking. Again, like we always try to say, try to get the best number, but I think. Separately from betting, I think Major League Baseball is a little bit of a problem because Atlanta probably never should have played the Phillies.
So I had this discussion last night. We were going back and forth with my buddies on a text thread, and I'm glad you brought this up because we were saying how the way it is right now, you're supposed to get rewarded, right? If you're winning 100 plus, if you're the top tier teams. Well, go ask the Dodgers, go ask Atlanta, go ask Baltimore. I mean, that's where we're at now. I'm not complaining because of my Arizona Diamondbacks. So, hey,
I was going to congratulate on that. I was going to wait till a little bit later. Because you hammer, you're right on Mr. Wilson.
Yep.
And you're right on Arizona
and San Francisco, but we'll get into that too. But yeah, so I think either cut down the season, make it $150, and just go all 7-game series. What do you think?
It's been floated. The records for years during our time growing up were sacred in baseball. My argument in NBA for reducing the NBA games is nobody knows who has the most points. People know what the average is.
Right.
So if you know what the average points are, oh yeah, Wilt averaged 50 or Jordan averaged 38. Nobody cared about the total points. So you could very easily reduce the total games in NBA. Baseball was tougher because you needed more games to reach those milestones of 61 homers, 67 doubles, whatever. And Bonds just almost single-handedly kind of crunched that, where now nobody is as into that number. It's still sacred, so it's going to be tough to lower the games. Me and you go back a long time, following baseball all the way back to the 70s. I think we're a good sample for, hey, what do you guys think? I don't have a problem going to 154. If you want to think outside the box, and COVID kind of gave us almost like a path to this. Why not start the season March 15th and play neutral sites for the first 2 weeks in Florida and in Arizona? You knock out, everybody plays 2 series.
Yeah,
or
good
3
weather.
series.
Yep, good weather.
Good weather. So your home opener isn't your home opener, but it's your home opener. It's not the season opener, but it's your home opener. Fans don't care.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it'll be lousy for the Colorados that go 1-9 to start the season, but it'll alleviate that issue of, okay, the NLDS, ALDS, how are we going to make it 7 games? That's kind of how you can do it. You don't even have to have 3 series in the neutral point. Maybe you have 1. Maybe that's enough where you can still play the full season. I just know what happened where all 3 top seeds, and if you count Milwaukee, it's like, Milwaukee had a great year. So I'm even forgetting Baltimore. Like, so you have all these teams that did really well. Nobody moved on. It's obvious because it's easier, and the variance is more in 5 games, obviously.
Yeah.
So the Phillies only had to beat the Braves 3 times. And we kind of brought it up last week. Beating a team 3 times instead of 4 is an unbelievable difference.
Yeah, and
now, it wouldn't matter with the Dodgers because they were down 3-0.
Right, and they caught the break too, because think about it. If they lose that game last night, then all of a sudden you're in panic mode. You might have to consider throwing Wheeler back out there, right? But now you talk about the rest factor. Those are all the, the variables. I just think, look, I mean, sometimes bats go cold, man. I mean, pitching goes south, bats go cold. It's hard for me to wrap my head around the lineup and the numbers that the Dodgers had, the lineup and the numbers that the Braves had, the lineup and the numbers that Baltimore had. You're talking about teams that are hitting 250, 300 plus home runs, and their bats go absolutely south. I mean, if you take away Harper getting doubled up the other night, then the Phillies win in 3. Right?
Yeah, it's almost feel bad for the Braves in a sense, because the season, who's had a better season? I can only think back to the Indians. The mid-90s Indians when they had
95 Indians.
And I mean, there's been 20 years, but it also stinks for Atlanta, and because they had so many good teams in the 90s and didn't win in 7-game series. So Senate could say, well, you know what? They were going to lose anyway. Remember they had that crazy series in 98 where they lose 3 straight and come back and win 3 straight and then just to lose game 7.
Yeah.
Manfred they've already buried Manfred with, what's going to happen? What's going to happen in this playoff format? Is it a failure? Van Pelt had a thing on that showed the last time this happened was 2002. So I wouldn't have been able to answer that trivia question, but I remember the year. All the top seeds were knocked out. Remember, it was Angels Giants, and Angels unbelievably won that.
2003 World Series.
Yeah. Well, no, 2002 was Angels. 03 was Marlins. Yeah, back-to-back years. Top seed. 2002. I completely forgot. In the middle of that Yankee heyday, Angels beat them.
Yes, they had a tough series.
And all the and San Fran wasn't the top seed. I think it was the Dodgers that year too. I got it. But all the top seeds were knocked out. I'm all for more teams being in. I actually floated the idea maybe in the NLDS and the ALDS. Maybe the Phillies don't get a home game. Maybe play as the 1 seed. Maybe you get every game home. They're like, oh, that's not fair. Well, what happened to the Braves isn't fair. Now they played the games. The Phillies dominated. They got hot. Braves, don't really have a 4th pitcher. A lot of people don't. Max Fried is hit or miss. I knew what happened the year that the Braves won the whole thing. The Dodgers hammered him, and then he came back and pitched real well. But being 7-game series, the strategy is different.
Of course,
you can have a lot. You don't care if you get bombed 15-1 in game 1.
Because you come back.
A lot of different things. Ultimately, though, Arizona is the 6th seed. Braves are the 1 seed. They should have been playing each other.
How about
the fact that they didn't reseed is just not fair. No, the Dodgers weren't that good this year. They couldn't pitch. Rice got hurt.
No, but the Braves were better this year than they were last year, and they
Oh,
still
yes, and they were great last year, so they were better. They're much better this year.
yeah.
But they can talk about Arcia and that whole controversy of should that have been reported. Listen, Harper's hitting a homer anyway. To think
in, man.
that was
Listen.
All this is fodder for us and for the media.
And how about our guy? How about our guy, Aaron Nola, the enigma? I mean, it's nice when you get a little run support like that, right? But I mean, it makes it a lot easier, right? Of course, I have to look at it and pull the negative. I'm like, well, he's got some run support. So now all of a sudden you're pitching a little different. You're a little more lapsed.
I don't think we've been unfair. I mean, he would make one. He was like 2009. He was like 2009 Hamels. He made one bad pitch and he went to pieces.
But how bad?
Yeah.
How bad is it going to be if it's the Rangers and the Diamondbacks in the World Series? Oh, come on.
It's bad. It's bad.
And right now the Rangers will be favored in that series.
It's going to be a close series. I mean, it's going to be a close series because, Houston, I hate the term experience because it's never quantifiable. It is in Dusty Baker's case. Yes, I know. He's got 9 million games he's played. You have a lot of players but you do have a lot of players on Houston who aren't going to be afraid. They're not going to fold in the moment. But I think, who thought David Freese was going to bat 500 in the play? He's never been ever. You always had these kind of anomaly guys. They don't care. The way baseball's set up is practice, practice, practice. They're so regimented in practice. Sometimes they don't. You don't have time to think outside. It's a very thinking, cerebral sport, as you know. I don't like that experience thing. Although you have Hall of Famers like David Ortiz on TV saying, "Don't disrespect experience." And then they'll point to Baltimore because Baltimore is a young team, and whatever the case may be, Houston's going to be there. Texas is good. It's going to be very close.
They both won 90 games. They were both 90 and 72.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, because we were in depth in football, I think the Astros had to win the last game of the year to get in.
They had to win late. Yeah. I mean, look,
they had to win late.
You're probably looking at minus 130, 35 for game one, especially.
Well, choose a little bit of moxie that the Astros played their way in.
Yeah.
And I actually had Texas. I have a future on Texas just from the beginning of the playoffs. It was small just because of Bochy. And, we talked about briefly off air and on air. Remember the Phillies opened in Texas and it was like a softball game. They gave up 40 runs or something.
They got smoked.
And the Phillies it helped the Phillies start 5-10. It was a little bit of a wake-up call for the Phillies, but it also was a wake-up call for those of us that follow baseball to say, wow, I expect Texas to be able to hit, but let's check them out.
Tough division, Texas. So I like Houston in this series, and I think right now the Phillies got a little juice. I mean, listen, I would love. I had Arizona making the playoffs. I got them NLCS. I didn't take a flyer on them. Shame on me to get to the World Series, but I just think.
How do you not do that? That's shame on you.
You know why? Because I have them making the playoffs. If I'm going to take them winning the NLCS, then I might as well friggin' take them going to the World Series. I know.
Sure.
So, Betters 101. Listen to the prop right there. That's a bad job by you. That's a horrible job.
If they're going to make the playoffs,
I'm going to
hammer. I've lost a lot of those bets, but never, usually they don't make the playoffs. One that I did win was years ago with the Marlins.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I think I might have. I think, and I have to pull it up to see in my notes, but I'm telling you what's going to happen is they'll probably win the friggin' World Series. So
don't say that. Well, listen, if they're going to win the World Series, they're definitely going to earn it. It's not going to be a 5-game series. They're going to have to beat Wheeler 3 times.
Yeah,
think about it. And Noah, we get on Noah, but you're going to have to see Noah twice, who's in a groove, and Wheeler 3 times. Wheeler 3 times.
He's a very good pitcher.
It's just a tough task.
Yeah.
That homer he gave up to his friend to Darnell, his buddy from the Mets. Uh, uh, the pitch, he gave up a hit in the beginning of that inning.
Yep.
And he was right around 90 pitches. And I said, maybe they got to think about just pulling him. What the heck, maybe.
Well, he had a nasty pitch prior to that, striking. I forgot who he struck out, and then the Darnell.
So that gave them thinking. Well, and then he got an out before Darnell too. So, but if you're going to pitch to Darnell, why not? You got to throw fast stuff to him. Yeah. So he hung the only pitch he could hit, and it was just a mistake. You can't get on him. He pitched. It's a shame because he pitched so well. What do you have? 10 strikeouts in 7 innings. He had a no-hitter. I mean, and then Black Cat. I'm getting all texts. This is unprecedented. Okay, be quiet if you want him to win. And then there you go, the home run. Well, but Arizona's on fire, but is it a great year if they lose 4-2 to the Phillies? Of course it is.
Of course.
And I was out there in September. May. September. So I think in the beginning of the year, out there in May, and nobody was talking about Arizona.
No.
They don't even care about their own team.
Afterthought.
Yeah, they're fair weather out there. Although they did have a decent home field. That crowd was right, but it isn't like ours. And bottom line, you're going to have to beat Wheeler 3 times. You beat Wheeler 3 times,
then you
God bless you.
Yeah.
Because of the week getting so close, I did a lot of stuff early in the week for football. I go back and revisit it. Then I go back and revisit it again, and then go back and revisit it again. And actually, I missed the opening number for the series. Stupid me, for the Phillies. But it's right about what I thought it would be. And Wheeler for game 1, I knew would be somewhere between 150 and 165, right in that range, which is exactly what he should be.
Yeah.
I think it's a good bet for Wheeler. I think you play Wheeler anything under 170-ish. I don't love it simply because I like it. Like I would play it. Plus, there's no fun playing Arizona at this point unless you're you. It's like, what do I care about that? But I think Phillies for the series. How do you not, grab them for the series? And then you actually hope it's not Houston. I don't want to see Houston again. Although, it would be good for the ratings. I don't know. I'm kind of cloudy.
I think so.
That.
Defending World Series champs. You have two. You actually defending. You're going to get a repeat.
True. Yeah. Everybody roots against Houston, right? Nobody wants Houston to win again.
No,
right?
and listen, as a Yankees fan, I hate to say the Phillies are a likable team. I'll tell you, man, Bryce Harper, he's locked like A-Rod was in 2009. That's where he's locked in. So I would like to see Houston and Philadelphia. I think that'd be a highly rated series.
Either one, there'll be a lot of scores.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. I think it'll be fun. It's already been fun, but you know what Philly is? You can't lose to Arizona. You can lose to the Dodgers. You can't lose to Arizona.
Correct.
You want to edit out the Parks?
Yeah. It's all moot. All right.
It's all moot. Perfect. That's right.
We got a week 6 already, jump started last night. Your guy, Sean Payton, deciding, let me take a timeout with 22 seconds left to punt the friggin' football at the end of the half. I don't know what's going on there, but it is time. It is if I can get a flyer right now on Russell Wilson being benched, it has to happen. They're a bad football team. I'm going to lean them the rest of the way. I looked at their schedule. I just don't think they're going to compete. I think they're going to start selling off some players. I think they're looking at the Williams sweepstakes. It can be a 2-15, 3-14 type of team. It's just these Thursday night games suck, number one. But listen, if you took Kansas City in the under last night, especially if you took the under, you're cashing it. But Denver's a bad football team, man.
Well, you called it. I thought they would be bad in the way they were bad against the Bears. Like I thought they would be. You don't want to be Carolina bad, where you're so bad you can't score. Jets bad until they play Denver, ironically. But for football for years and years. The teams that, to me, that are the most atrocious are the ones that can't score. Because if you're bad and can score, anything can happen. A lot can happen. You can get in a couple weird shootouts, and there's injuries for the other team. You can be bad and lose 40-35. I thought that's kind of what they were going to. And it showed last night. Two things last night. I watched the replay or most of the highlights this morning because of the Phillies. I didn't get a chance to watch the game. Not that I wanted to watch the game anyway. I actually thought 10.5 was a tricky number that I would want no parts of KC with. Sure enough, they make it 16-8 late, and which is now, if you're a little nervous about your gigantic, I don't know who's betting gigantically on Denver plus 10.5. You're hammering the button in game, for Kansas City
refresh.
For exact score, for them to score, kick a field goal, because you kind of figure that's what they were going to head down and do. I think you're right. Peyton and Wilson obviously aren't getting along. He either puts him out there. Peyton is such a I don't want to be completely unfair to him. He's such a creep that I think he might put Wilson out there
to show that he can't play.
To show that he can't play, and then say, well, look, I gave him all 16, 17 games, and he stinks. At some point, though, the team is going to call for him. When he started throwing the interception, sure, one was tipped, but that other one was awful. Last week he missed receivers all over the place.
Well, you got the wide receiver barking at Steve Smith, Judy. I mean, they got rid of the one
frustrated. You're frustrated. Yeah. Steve Smith took the high road. They might even trade Judy. Peyton can spin this and say, look what I was given. Apologize to Hackett. It's always got to do mea culpa. So you know what? I was wrong. He already apologized, but I mean a real apology.
He won't do it. He
could say, you know what? I didn't realize what was here. This is hot garbage. He's going to be able to spin it. I don't think Denver is completely hot garbage. I think they have some pieces there, but it was a mistake with Wilson. And you're starting to see, you're also seeing it in New England. If you don't have the quarterback,
100%.
You can't win. And then we could talk about that too. Like for years, I was never a defender of Belichick, and I am now, ironically. Not even just to be contrarian. You have guys like Shannon Sharp and a lot of these people that people listen to are saying, as the game passed Bill Belichick,
he doesn't have the players. He doesn't have.
I actually just heard Steve Berline of all people, chime in. I think this is going to be an opportunity for people. I'm surprised Bill Polian hasn't come out of the woodwork to kick Belichick while he's on the ground. There's going to be an opportunity for everybody to dump on
right, because there's no Brady. There's no Brady.
Yeah, and you have people that weren't even around, weren't even alive when he did his Cleveland run. And I remind people in the Cleveland run, it was when the Steelers got really good.
Yep. They won 11-5 the one year. They won 11-5 Cleveland.
He drugged that team to the playoffs with a defense, with Hanford Dixon. And, he had no quarterback. Remember, he got rid of Kozar. They pieced it together, and it just happened to be bad luck. They were basically the same team as the Steelers. The Steelers were better.
Yeah.
Sure enough, remember they beat New England in a playoff game.
Yep.
And he took over a team that was a mess. They were 3-13. And then this is what gets forgotten. The whole year after the playoffs, Modell wanted to move.
Right.
So it was a huge distraction. He wanted to sue. And he got his wish. And remember, he made the announcement in Thanksgiving.
Yep.
During the year, hey, we're going to Baltimore.
Right.
Talking about that, I don't think that would ever happen today. The NFL, the Goodell would not allow it. They were like, shut up. Because he basically tanked the season, and then he said, hey, Belichick's not coming with us, blah, blah, blah. The other thing I remind is Belichick to me, he's the top. I mean, you have to go back and look to the people who created defense to find people better than him. So you want to split hairs and say he's the top 5 best defensive mind in football history? Every year the Patriots won the playoffs, they had a top 5 or top 10 defense. The back-to-back years that they won, the year they beat the Eagles and Carolina, what was their defense? Chop liver. Every guy on that defense was good. And I can't believe that. But here's telling. I don't see Teddy Bruschi. I don't see Rodney Harris. I don't see any of these guys sticking up for Belichick or their defense, which is odd. Maybe it'll come out if they part ways. But there's not a shot that he's given up his GM thing. And if Belichick is smart, and he is, but if he's smart handling the environment, and he even breathes that Kraft wants to go another place, he starts to reach out to other teams.
Well, it's already been reported. CBS reported that Kraft basically, listen, if it blows up again, then he would consider firing Belichick. I mean,
did CBS say anything about where Belichick might end up?
Because no, but
I've actually thought about it, because he's not going to go anywhere without a quarterback. I'm going to tell you right now, if the Chargers don't make the playoffs and win a game,
that would be a good fit.
It's the perfect place. It's not the perfect place because Spanos and those guys won't give any money.
Yeah, they don't.
I thought Washington would be a great spot because you got a new owner. They got tons of money.
Yeah.
They want everybody gone.
Yeah.
The enemy will have no problem being Belichick's defensive.
Then you have again quarterback. You're going to have another bridge quarterback. What are you going to go back? You're going to go back and bring in Kirk Cousins?
But you do everything you can do to set up to try to get some pick in a deep draft.
Yeah,
that's the only. But I can listen. We could see it happening because they got a lot of money, and wherever he ends up going, I even thought Tampa. But again, you have a quarterback issue.
Right.
Well, I like the Washington thought simply because it's still East Coast. They got a lot of money. Either wherever he goes,
and that would be
he's
huge.
Not going to retire. He's going to have a job in 12 hours. I tweeted this
out. 100%. Now they're
and something else to consider, Rich. Who's coming after him that's better than Bill Belichick? The only narrative you can hang your hat on is that, hey, the game's passed him by. They were getting killed, and he was 4th and 2 on Saints 40, and he punted. That's not Bill Belichick. Yeah. So, but it's almost like he's conceded the season.
I think so.
In a sense.
And listen, he's benched that quarterback twice already. He's benched that quarterback twice already. So,
should we be crying tears for Belichick? Though I've also thought about that.
Guys live
should they be running to his defense? No. I feel myself like you know what it is I don't want. I feel that Brady should get obviously a ton of credit, but I feel like that defense. How do you underestimate? You need a quarterback to win in this league, but you also need a defense.
It all worked because you had the players, the head coach, the scheme, the organization, the support. It was a perfect marriage. So for everyone to sit there and say, see what Bill Belichick is like without Tom Brady, I get it. It's low-bearing fruit, but you cannot take away everything that man's done in 40-something odd years.
How many won 11 games with Matt Castle? How did that team not make the playoffs? They won 11 games.
I know.
What kind of insanity? If you're 11 wins, you should automatically be in the playoffs.
100%. They're getting 3 on the road, by the way, against another jackass head coach and Josh McDaniels.
Because it's another bad team. And as we get into October, November, and even December, well, not early December, but really right now we're kind of in the meat of the season. You know who people are now. Some people who are new to betting, and some people that are not new to betting, they think, oh well, the lines are more efficient.
You're just separating the
deeper you get in the season. Well, NFL efficiency is really high anyway, but when there's a mistake, there's a huge mistake, and I've had success in the past with teams overvaluing lousy teams favored against other lousy teams because it's so hard to quantify. I mean, you have the metrics there. People use their own. I have my own. You use your power ratings, whatever. You can create a power rating. It's hard to apply it to, okay, well, how bad are the Raiders?
Right.
We saw how bad the Patriots are.
Right.
But, I've also watched Bill Belichick beat a much better team throwing 3 passes in, 400-mile-an-hour Jupiter winds. So, you can't discredit you can't discredit that, New England could go in and, win a game 17-16,
Sure.
and McDaniel punts like 6 times and kicks 6 field goals and they miss them all.
Yeah.
So you could see something like that happening. I really would like to have more than 3. Of course, everybody would. That's not groundbreaking.
How about Eagles? I know it was 6.5. It's now 7. I don't care about the Jets. Have never beaten. No, listen, Eric Allen can return that pick 6, and Cunningham can go tape up his leg.
That history, I don't care about that. You know what it is? You have a good team playing the second game on the road against a team that was supposed to be a much better defense. They're still decent defense,
but they're not top 5 that everyone.
Not top.
Yeah.
But when you have those kinds of players, I've noticed in the past, I've tried to find a like defense, and in the past, try to compare them number wise and see what happened when, they didn't play, the defense wasn't, top 3 or 4. And what you see sometimes is you always have one of those teams have like an unbelievable game that they shouldn't have. You're like, what? Oh, there's that defense. And they really came to play that kind of thing. You hope if you're an Eagles fan, it's not this game. But I can see the Eagles winning a game similar to like they did at Arizona last year, early in the year, where they were favored by more than 3.
Oh, Murray slid. Remember that right before the first down marker.
Yes, and if he slides, it's So I could see something like that. People say, well,
27-14.
It's 7 points on the road.
Yeah, that's
it's a lot. But the teams that do cover those games are the elite teams. San Fran is 7.5. I think Tucker's going to start for them. So if anybody's going to do the 7, it's usually the superior teams, and the superior teams who score a lot, like New England in their heyday.
Sure.
Manning when he was with Denver. Manning when he was with the Colts. If you go back like the last 20 years, who's laid 7, even in division? You can go all the way back to Greatest Show on Turf. Those guys did it.
Yeah.
Everybody else squeaks through. So do the Eagles squeak through, or do they crush? I think they'll probably squeak through. And here's a theory that's not based on anything but gut. Did you see the next 5 weeks after the Jets?
Yes.
I think if memory serves me, it's home Miami. In there, you got Buffalo's home at Dallas. I think your Kansas City's in there. You're at Seattle somewhere.
You're going to get your meat and potatoes. You got Miami, Washington, Dallas, Kansas City, Buffalo, San Fran, Dallas.
Holy smoke! Compare that to San Fran and Detroit has to play, and that is no joke. The Eagles always split with Dallas. It's very tough to sweep. Dallas is not, as I found to my detriment, they're not the elite, but they're a decent team. So decent teams at home, they win games.
They're going to have 3. They're going to have 3 games if they coming out of the bye. You got Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco. If they win all those 3 games, they're a legitimate, not even a Super Bowl contender. Like I would sit there and say, at that point, yeah, they're the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. You're talking about
because they'll be the 1 seed.
But more important, but you're also going through 3, the teeth, right? We're talking about Kansas City, Buffalo in the AFC, and then the 49ers. So that
at Seattle is always a tough game unless Seattle's
and it's in December too. Weather's going to be crappy. You might get the rain. I think that's a 4:00 game. It's a 4:25 game. And then they have a bye week again after that because they have the Giants.
That is, they're idle. They play idle that week. But Seattle's good. Seattle's not great. They can score. They're a decent team. The sad part for the Eagles, and we'll know a lot more in 2 weeks. Of course, we'll talk about it. Is that as they could play great and still be 13-4.
Sure.
And
you want to get home field. You've got it. They're not
going to be the 2 seed. They could be 14-3, 13-4, and they're going to have to play in San Fran.
There you go. They're not, and I'm sorry, right now they're not beating San Francisco on the road. They're just not.
It's going to be a great. I want to say it. Everybody wants to say it.
What do you
It'll be
think
a
that
great
line would
game.
be, by the way?
San
Niners
Fran
like
will be
2.5,
favored. No,
Niners
they'll be
2.5, 3.
They'll be three. I mean,
Yeah.
they'll be laying hook. We'll know a lot more about how they play at home against Miami. I think they're going to beat Miami because it's home. I think they'll have more of a problem, believe it or not. At Dallas is going to be a tough game.
Kansas
Uh,
City,
at
Buffalo.
Kansas City, I could the historically. As if you're an Eagles fan, you've seen them do stuff like go to Kansas City and win, and then lose at Washington. So it. We have to be careful. It's the
San
NFL.
Francisco years ago, right? 44-8. And then, of course, the Niners went on and won the Super Bowl.
What surprised me about that? My memory is really good with a lot of the odds and the results of that. I was surprised that championship game, they were favored against Dallas by like a lot.
San Fran was.
And I remember that was the game they got down 21-0, and Aikman threw a pick six.
Yep.
But remember, they came back.
Yep.
And they lose by 10. And I remember Michael Irvin saying, if there was another quarter, we would have won this game by 10.
Was that like the 38-28 game?
38-28, because remember, they were done and Irvin called it past late deep. And you could just tell Niners are running out of gas. It's weird that I remember the game.
Yeah.
But because I was not a Dallas fan, but I remember thinking, look at this train just running. And that was the only blip in which would have been a 4-year walkover for Dallas.
Yeah.
And if I do believe, I hate to piss off San Fran fans, if Dallas had played that San Fran team, best of 5 in spirit of the NLDS, best of 5, they would have won 3 of 5. They would have beat that team 3 of 5.
You mentioned San Francisco, and we talked about some of these quarterbacks with the buyer's remorse, right? I mean, Cleveland, Deshaun Watson. I mean, they stink. I mean, this is a game too where I look at San Francisco. You might have McCaffrey, Debo, and Purdy probably with their helmets off and their baseball caps on come the fourth quarter.
Well, again, it's tough to lay this kind of jack with anybody. Like, because we've seen so many times 24-6. And then they know they're going to win, and here you are in the third quarter, and then the goal is let's get to the next game with nobody getting hurt. Of course, that's when people get hurt, when you're trying not to get hurt. But still, your game plan changes a little bit. Let's get out of here. Steal this win. Let's get out. Like you said, McCaffrey will sit. They catch a break where they're beating Dallas so bad they put the backup in early fourth quarter, which was purposely done by Shanahan, I think, to stick it to Dallas.
Stick it to him a little more.
I would have laughed if they put him in any earlier. I thought Purdy was hurt, so they put the backup in. But the story of Deshaun Watson's backup is interesting. The guy's been all over the place. He's been cut. I think the Bears he cut him. He's a resilient guy. They're not going to be able to put points on the board. I think at some level the Browns are thinking the Bengals are not out 5-1. We can save Watson. It's a dangerous game to play, but they don't have to play him in non-division, non-conference games. That if you're ever going to lose these games, that's the game you want to lose. Years ago, I remember Roethlisberger came to Philly in the middle of a Ravens, Browns, it was like an AFC fest. And in the middle, Steelers had to come to Philly. And I think the Eagles were decent, I believe. And I remember they beat them some ridiculous amount. I don't know. I'm not going to look it up. But I remember they just beat the pants off them. And you could just tell, got to the second half, Steelers coasted, because if you're going to lose a game, lose that game, because it won't count against you in tiebreakers. And again, I don't want to say they tanked, but middle of the year, you're making business decisions of
100%.
let's go get the next week. They played much better. I don't want to say the reason I bring that up is because sometimes the bad teams kind of coast. Maybe they don't care if they get killed 40-3 here. Even that being said, I don't like San Fran. If you want to take a shot and play a teaser with them, road favorites years ago didn't do as well in teasers, bringing it down to win the game. Home favorites used to win these games outright. I don't think there's any chance Browns are winning this game. So if you want to put San Fran in a tease, the line was 7.5.
Yeah.
I think it's higher now. I wasn't
bookend it with the Eagles. Get that line to 1. Basically,
you could. I'd rather bookend it with the Rams, to tell you the
Rams.
truth. Or or bookend it with the team I like this week. I like the Texans. I think the Texans. I like Texans.
By the way, how about last week?
Money line? I like Texans. If you want to put a team in a teaser, you put the Texans in a teaser.
Real quick, I texted you last week. I did not think the Saints. I mean, that was a rake the leaves day. I mean, you laid heavy on the Saints in that game. That you turned the game off 24-0.
Yeah, and it was a good play. I actually bet the Saints second half.
Okay.
Because
they're 2-point favorite against the Texans on the road.
Yeah, well, there's some value in sometimes when you have a small dog who gets up.
Yeah.
If people have bet that team, sometimes they say, "Oh, let me try to middle the game," and for whatever reason, there's some value in there playing the second half. So I played the Saints in that spot, and look what happened. Patriots didn't even. They shut it down basically. But week to week is very, it's different in this league. I don't like to look week to week. Every game's important. You are what your stats say you are. You can't, a narrative, a cynic can say, well, that the Dolphin Bronco game is an anomaly. It happened. I know it skews their averages, but they stink. No matter how you want to, Denver's defense 6. So I bring it up where if you're looking to handicap these games, I think you look at all of them. And even though the Texans lost last week, it was literally 3 or 4 plays could have went either way.
Of course,
they showed you what they are. They have an underrated defense, and now you're seeing that they have a good offense. Even if they finish 8-9 this year,
that's a good season.
9-8 or
that's
whatever.
A very good season.
They're set up to be good next year. But I do think that they can win a lot of these close games. I thought they would beat Atlanta last week.
I mean, listen, it's a game-winning field goal. It happens.
They didn't. I like them this week. I had the other close ones last week too. I was wrong, obviously, on the Cowboys, but Jacksonville played well.
You called that one in
Jacksonville
London.
played well. Well, neutral game sites are tough. Right. When you're in a neutral site game.
Well, plus they didn't travel.
Jacksonville's a good team.
Yeah. See, does your theory subscribe? Do you subscribe that? Like, okay, the Giants are going to have no one on Sunday night. I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath. I mean,
it's always hard for me to quantify because it's in the line. You got to jack out 14 points, and so now look what you're rooting for. You could be 31-7 and not be out of the woods.
But my point is, does McDermott? Do they call off the dogs because it's Dable?
No. I think they want to have a beer a couple years from now and say, "Remember, I beat you 60-3." Yeah.
And they flex
that. Rich, I love you, but if I'm playing you, I'm hammering you like 56-10 piece. I'm not giving you nothing. I'm gonna be like, "What are you doing? What are you doing with this team? You're trying to get me fired? Well, I'll hire you if you get fired. Who cares?"
You're looking at about a 42-10 type of game.
Maybe, but I tend to look at these types of line. If this
you don't have anyone,
if this game's in December, I'm trying to research the Giants a little bit to see how I can.
If this game is this, I'll tell you right now. If this game's in December, if you go by their past record under McAdoo, Shermer, and Judge, then you can hammer Buffalo at 15, because by that time, I still remember they played the Rams a couple of years ago with friggin' Shermer, and they gave up a 3rd and 32 that went for a touchdown.
I remember that.
Yeah, Jenkins was making business decisions. They're a horrible tackling team, which is, by the way, running rampant. You saw it in the Rams and Eagles game. Like, wrap up Jalen Hurts. Don't try to bang him. The Giants are a horrible tackling team, and you're right. This probably is going to be a 35-6 type of game.
I don't know parts of the Giants. It's just tough. I will say this for the Bills, if you're a Bills backer. They lost. And the players are looking to come out and make.
They're pissed off.
Yeah. And, I could see them coming out 14, 21, nothing. You just worry about when a really good team, a playoff team's thinking, I need to make the Super Bowl. That team gets up 24-3. Do they care if they win 24-13?
Yeah.
At that point, they may not care.
Yeah.
But I tend to focus on what people consider like the harder games, like the Texans.
How about the Dallas game?
The
Dallas and Chargers.
The Chargers. Wow, what a hard game. I like the Chargers.
That quarter Prescott
in the game.
I
like the game of the Chargers. I can't back Dallas here at all. I thought this game would be.
By the way,
I was actually wrong. I thought the Chargers would be like 1 or 2 here.
You should love this game because you have 2 friggin' clueless head coaches.
Yeah, well, I actually like Staley a little bit because here's why I stuck up for Staley. Because what people don't understand about Staley is this is not all Staley. This is what's being lost.
Yeah.
He's the head coach. And Trish, hey, the head coach, this is not Bill Belichick running this team. He can't go in he can go to his staff and his players, but he can't go to his GM and the front office. Well, here's what I'm doing. No, they have a much closer relationship. And actually, the rumor was why Staley's been all over the place with analytics is they've given him the chance to use his gut sometimes. They say, hey, they have an analytics team that say, we're about 54%. But do whatever you like, that kind of thing. And then he's done, which is why he's all over the place. And even that playing Mike Williams last year, even playing his players, I've been heard that wasn't his call 100%. And some of the players wanted to play that game. So as a head coach, do you say, well, I'm going to do this? I don't know. But I do know he's not Chuck Noll in this situation as far as having complete and utter control. Yeah. But with that being said, they got a talented team. Herbert is Herbert. Yes, Dallas. If Dallas wins, it's because of their defense. It won't be anything that Dak did. I like the Chargers. I like the game to go over. But it's not a game I'm completely in love with. Again, for people who love teasers, I think that I keep calling them San Diego. If the Chargers are to your liking, it is a decent play to get them with 8.5. I think you wait up until game time. I do think there'll be a little bit of line movement for the Chargers, but people are waiting for injury and whatever, and God knows what else could happen by Monday. It's a strange year, but we're getting into a part of the NFL season that's going to be really, really. This was some lousy weeks of matchups.
A lot of blowouts.
We get, I think, when they get into where they start to flex, I think they're going to have the Miami Buffalo flexed.
You have to.
And that's it's going to be in Miami. It'll be a great game. And I think there's another game that week that's good. The Eagles, I think, might be playing Dallas. I didn't look. I didn't cheat, but I know because we have this week to get through, and then it's just for people listening to the show. It does get better. It will be more interesting. Hey, it's another interesting game. I think Buffalo and Cincinnati play again, and Cincinnati is not as bad as they started out. Although, like I said before, you are what your numbers are.
Yep.
They are. They're not an elite team. Their defense is not as good. Their offense is not as good. But they do have flashes, and they can. Jamar Chase can go crazy. With that being said, I'm not in love with them either this week, which is kind of a strange line. In a sense of they might be getting – how about last week? It was, Arizona was getting too much respect. 3?
Yeah, I know.
3 Arizona's. I mean, what happened? This is Arizona in 3. It's just it was a little bit odd. So I do like the Texans. You got Minnesota. They made Minnesota a favorite at the
Chicago, yeah.
Bears.
Yep.
I actually already played the Bears. A 3 is good here. Yeah, Minnesota scores, but they're not a good team.
No.
And good teams, when you get to the bottom half, they're very close.
Yeah.
Bears are not much not much worse than they're not the Giants, to put it into and they're not Denver. They're not as bad as Denver. And then then we'll go to the game that really ticked me off, because I got to tell you, if Baltimore wins the game, just wins the game, it would have meant a lot to my heart and my wallet. Because I tweeted out, I say, if there's ever going to be a game between Tomlin and Harbaugh that's not close, this might be it. Yep. And it started that way. You're 10-3, you're on the 5. Of course, I didn't expect the world to cave in, where Harbaugh's making some bad decisions, but also his receivers are dropping touchdown passes
balls all over the place,
dropping balls all over the place. He completely messed up whatever they were trying to do with the tie. He's done that in the past.
And they had the lapse. They had the defensive lapse late.
And then, now you're on the 5. You're 10-3. Mm-hmm. How do you lose that game? I went back and looked the Tomlin Harbaugh matchup because you have this narrative. All the games went. They're all whoever the dog is in the game, take it and go under. Of those, was 32 games. Yeah, the dog is covered a bunch of them. I think 24, 25. Once I got to like 20, I stopped looking. And I think the under of those games, something like 18 and 13. So it's good, but it's not unbelievable.
Sure.
But I don't like the narratives where you're comparing the team of 2009 Ravens to the 20, because they're two different teams. The 2023 Ravens might look like the 2009 Chargers. I don't know. They might look more like them. But it's 10-3. I'm like, just what I said, they're going to win 17-3, maybe 17-10. It'll be one score, but it wasn't that close. And then there you go. So that leads into this week. They're favored in Tennessee, and they're not in Tennessee. That's the stupid London game. So it's a neutral site game. I think it helps Baltimore, obviously. I think Baltimore is going to win the game, and I think they'll cover. Now it's up to 4. It was open 3.5. It was 4 or 4.5. It's one score. I don't think it'll be field goal. I do still think Baltimore is a borderline elite. I don't know. How do you feel about it? I think if they'll still play defense. If the receivers can catch the ball,
yeah, so they'll be healthy.
Yeah, they'll be right around the number. I don't think Pittsburgh is any good.
No.
And I think, okay, let's give the novices their win with, hey, they played the Ravens tough. Let's get back to reality. I think the Steelers, they still have the same problems. I don't like them as a team. I certainly won't like them anytime they're favored. But I've kind of focused on the Ravens this week at a neutral site. I think they're a much better team than the Titans. So I played that as well. But as far as matchups go, everything else is kind of like, What do you think? What else do you like?
I mean, that's we covered the gamut, man. I mean, I'm kind of lock, stock, and barrel with the picks as well.
We'll focus on the Lions next week. Let's see what they do in Tampa. Because Tampa's been playing well.
That's right.
Mayfield is the best third down quarterback right now in the league. If they end up winning this game 27-24, I don't think it knocks the luster off of the Lions season at all.
Well, but if they lose 31-10 and Jared Goff plays poorly, then it's same old Lions.
Now you got to take a look at it and go, wait a minute.
Yep.
If they come back and then win 3 straight, you could say, well, it's always tough. I don't know. I think they'll compete. Lions are good. I don't want to spend too much time because I think they have some
Agreed.
bigger fish to fry down the road, and then we'll know what they are even more. If they're 6-2, week 8, uh, they'll look like we'll feel about them how we feel about them right now. Now, last week in college, we had a ton of good games. At least, for me, I thought I got 4 dogs that were all getting points, and I thought all 4 would win. And if Missouri had a ref crew that had a brain, I mean, what in the world was going on? I had to turn the game off. So Missouri LSU and LSU's defense, my God, actually both defenses. So not only does Missouri lose, they don't cover. It was which would have gave you a 4-0 sweep. But a lot of people as smart as me or smarter kind of looked at Oklahoma. People that weren't biased, that don't have any dog in that fight, to say Oklahoma's a good team. I will not be surprised if they win. The game that shocked everybody was Louisville. And I also think some of these pundits and analysts, I think they're too close to Notre Dame.
I had Louisville outright, and my disdain for Notre Dame, but I did.
Well, there's a bias. But listen, Notre Dame, they
100% bias.
They are what they are. It's a cliche, but they are what they are. So you say, okay, well, what are they? Well, they have a really good defense.
Yeah,
they have a good. It didn't show up perfectly. Obviously,
and they're laying 2.5 against USC this weekend.
It's a tough game because you have not a good offense. You have a great offense, but you also have a good defense. When I say good, you don't want to compare Penn State and Alabama's defense to Utah State or whatever. If Utah State's numbers are really good, who cares? But Notre Dame's has a good defense playing top teams or middle tier teams. Duke's a good team. Duke's good. Louisville's good. I don't. Louisville might lay an egg this week. I don't. Do they know they're playing Pitt? I bet you those kids didn't think about Pitt until like this morning. That now they got to go on the road. They're laying 7.5 or 8. That's going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised. Notre Dame's probably rooting for them to win, so they don't look so bad. But it's such a tough game. I do look. You're going to hate this. I do think Notre Dame will win the game. I think Notre Dame will win the game. I think they'll cover by more than 3. You won't get the 2.5, please. Yeah. You don't want anything. Yeah. I think the more interesting game is Oregon-Washington, which a lot of people on the East Coast don't pay enough attention to. I said it last week, the Pac-12 or whatever they are right now, the Pac-2, the Pac-0, whatever they were. I mean, Washington State had a chip on their shoulder because of nobody wanting them, apparently.
Yep. Both teams undefeated and can score.
Yeah. But as Washington State was a good team, I don't think they're as good as UCLA. They should. I don't think they're not as good as Oregon or Washington either, but they're all kind of good. I said Arizona wasn't bad. So I bet Arizona this week as well. I had it when I got it was 4, they were 4.5, they were 5, they were 5. Anything more than 3, I thought was a good number. And every update I get, I wasn't watching the games, watching some of the other games. Arizona's right in it.
Yeah.
I'm saying Arizona, but I mean Arizona State. But Arizona's good too. So the whole pack, they all play better defense than the Pac-12 ever really did. Which will help me in bowl games, because if they get in a bowl game against a team people think, oh, it's the same old Pac-12, maybe I'll have Arizona or Arizona State or even Cal, because Cal isn't discussed, isn't bad. Most times the Pac-12 teams would have good offenses and just awful defenses, and now they actually have some decent defenses. So with that being said, Oregon hasn't played anybody at all. I looked at their schedule. Washington hasn't really played anybody either. Do you count Michigan State as a team? I don't know. Do you play? Who do you count on their schedule? They played a little bit better schedule, but these games are always close when they have similar teams. I like Oregon in the game. It should be a great game, as great as when Herbert was in these games, and you can go back to whenever. But when they're evenly, the one year whoever's ranked higher used to lose. One team's ranked 6th, one team's ranked 25th. So I bet Oregon. I got 3. I won a 3.5. I could see, and then at a field goal, I could also see Oregon winning this game. Would you bat an eyelash if it was 34-27?
No.
So I think they're a good team. And Oregon has a defense.
Yeah.
Like I just said, all the Pac-12, Oregon's defense is better than Washington's. Not by much, but it's better. And then the other thing I did want to mention, if there's a game you wanted to mention before we get off in college, there is one game that stands out, and you might even bring it up. But again, I'll let you. I keep calling it Arizona State because let's face it, they are the same team.
I don't know what
they hate each other.
What game you're referencing?
Miami. So what happened? Lost in the baseball playoffs, and with the Oklahoma, Texas, and all these other really good games that were going on, is what happened in the Miami game, which is I can't even fathom that this happened. I did not see it live, and it's just like, how do you not kneel on the ball?
They had lost.
I know coaches are college coaches make some awful mistake. If you ever the chance to watch some of these bad, or some of these off games, I hate to keep picking on Utah State, but if you watch Utah State playing somebody, if you watch, New Mexico or UTEP that played, you'll see crazy, punting at the third, just crazy stuff that coaches do. This is one of the craziest, Rich. I can't remember anybody.
It was bad, man. It was, and they're getting 3 on the road against.
So here's what's interesting: the narrative now is, these kids can't recover.
Right.
I don't think the players look at it that way. I think this gets players off the hook. If I'm the head coach, say, listen, I lost this. I made the mistake. You guys didn't do it. Yeah, you should defend. But if you're an honest coach, if you have any kind of rapport with your players, tell them, say, listen, this is on me. You guys play great. I'm supposed to put you in a position to win. I didn't do that. Let's go out and show what we are.
So you like Miami in this game?
I like Miami. I like Miami to win the game. I actually played the money line to win the game. People say, you don't recover from this. I actually looked up a couple crazy losses. I went back to, of course, it's not going to be a big sample size. I went back to Cordell Stewart Hail Mary.
I was thinking Colorado. Yep. I was about to say that.
If you remember in 94, it changed the entire landscape of the mythical, because you didn't have a playoff. You had people voting on it. And Colorado, I think, was ranked 7th that year. Michigan was 4th. It was an incredible game to have in September. And this Hail Mary changed the landscape of everything. It set Michigan kind of on a downward spiral, but not the next game. The next game they were favored at Iowa, and Iowa wasn't terrible. And they put a beating on Iowa. I actually thought Louis Carr coached that team. It was Gary Mueller. And Michigan finishes 8-4, but that's the year Penn State went undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the year Nebraska were good. So there's a lot of good teams. Big Ten was good. You can't fault them. Point being is they didn't go to pieces because of that Hail Mary, and they should have, because it changed everything. If you had one loss, you weren't sniffing the title.
Right.
And they still went out and won the next week. So I do think it's in the players. If you have the bet. Now, that being said, North Carolina is good, but I think it's an overlay. But I really like Miami's defense. And Miami as a team is decent. They're not as good, obviously, as Florida State, who's beaten everybody by 9,000. But I like Miami.
Okay.
I played the money line. some of the other smaller lines I played Florida. Like I said, I played Oregon. I did not, and I played Missouri again, but not for a lot. So I have Missouri. And if you want to take a flyer on let's call them the Wildcats of Arizona, not the Sun Devils. Let's call them the Wildcats. They're in a spot where they're getting 8, and when you get more than a touchdown, it seems simplistic, but you want to start with either a team that's scoring crazy or a team that has a really good defense. I like Arizona. Baseball's going to trump all of this.
Sure.
I'm going to have a lot of game by game stuff. So it actually falls well for us that this week is kind of like,
We'll get into it. We got a lot of baseball, as you mentioned, too. Prop gets the last word at Professor Shine. Always kind enough to join us on Football Friday, BYP, from our wonderful friends, as we mentioned, over Played Against Sports. Check them out online. Put on location, New Jersey, the Deptford store. And as I said, you can walk in, always open for business. They give you some really good bang for the buck as well. And if you heard it right here, we talked about that 10% promo. We talked about it all week long on BYP. As always, he is primed, he is ready, he is good to go. He's going to put some money in the pocket. Prop, always appreciate a couple moments, pal. We'll do it again next week.
All right. Thank you. Good luck.
You too, pal.